update. And everything that I'll share today is true as of today, but can change if the governor chooses to change things, and the General Assembly would then have to react to that change. So there are lots and lots of bills that I wanted to give a brief overview of, most of which we've had a little update on as they move through the session. On the access and inclusion front, I'll start there. The Autism Advisory Council, which hasn't been around for a few years, is being reestablished, which is very exciting. Paid family medical leave options passed the House and Senate, and hopefully will not be vetoed by the governor, but we know that that's a huge deal for families dealing with loved ones with disabilities. We are going to see July permanently become Disability Pride Month in Virginia, which is exciting. Curbside voting is now going to be available for anyone with any kind of disability who needs it for any reason. And Virginia Department of Conservation and Recreation is creating a 2-year pilot program where at some parks in Virginia, they'll have free power wheelchairs for people with disabilities to better be able to explore the parks, which is pretty exciting. Sherry alluded to some of the quorum issues. So there are 2 pretty important pieces of legislation here, one of which is disability specific. That is saying that people with disabilities and their caregivers, which generally means a family caregiver or guardian, may attend meetings like this one, state or local advisory groups, boards, commissions, etc., remotely, count towards the quorum remotely, and vote remotely, which would be a big step forward. Very, very, very excited about that. There is also a bill that the governor has signed that for all meetings, regardless of disability accommodations or the topic of the meeting, if it falls in that category again of kind of local and state advisory groups, boards, commissions, etc., 50% of meetings can now be held virtually as opposed to 25%. So it's an option, but it is more flexibility for local and advisory boards and groups and that kind of thing, which we're excited about. On the special education front, a law is passing that says students with disabilities have to be evacuated from the school at the same time as peers without mobility impairments, because our neighboring school system did not do that. And there is a big proposal for DARS to post online resources related to transition that are helpful to students and families and easy for students and families to find. So they're supposed to be working on that. On the waiver front, the plan to fund the Priority 1 part of the Medicaid waiver waiting list in 2 years went through, which is very exciting. So it would be 172 CL waivers per year for 2 years and 1,548 FIS waivers per year for 2 years. So by the numbers, you can hear the overwhelming number are FIS waivers. They are to be released quarterly, as opposed to in the past, slots have been released once a year. And this should allow more time for CSBs and service providers and DSS offices processing Medicaid applications and all of those people to better deal with this influx of folks coming into the system. And along that note, they are also giving a longer timeline for people to start receiving, actually using waiver services after it's offered, right? Because we know with all of these people coming into the system, there are sometimes big glitches where people can't get services started. Maybe someone is leaving the hospital in a long-term stay for physical rehab. Maybe someone is incarcerated. Maybe family members are having grandparents moving in and out, right? Lives are complicated. And so this offers a little bit more flexibility there. Overall, most of the waiver services are getting a 3% rate reimbursement increase, and attendant care, that one-to-one caregiver that would come in the home. So it's the same rate for attendant care, personal care, respite care, companion care, whatever you call it, is getting a 1.2% increase January 1st of next year, and an 11.1% increase January 1st of 2026. Those numbers were driven by proposed minimum wage raises, which may or may not be subject to a veto. If the minimum wage bill is vetoed, that doesn't necessarily mean anything changes with this part of the budget, but it could mean that it's looked at differently, especially next year when the General Assembly goes back and looks at funding that 11.2% that they planned. So just something to keep in mind. Peer mentoring rates are increasing. That's where a waiver user can offer mentorship to someone who's being offered or receiving a waiver. Service facilitation rates are increasing if you are someone using consumer directed services, and the requirement that those service facilitators have a 4-year degree is going away. That's a relatively new requirement. I think it started in 2016, if we're going by my memory, when the DD system kind of got revamped. The bill that we talked about a fair amount here that would allow parents who are paid caregivers of children under 18 to continue to be paid under the waiver passed. We're in a really funny is not the right word, odd zone where the pandemic area flexibilities on this have ended. The permanent bill that just passed won't start until July 1, but the state got permission from CMS, the Federal Medicaid Office, essentially, to extend some of the flexibilities a little bit longer. So we're not either with the permanent or the COVID flexibilities. We're in a weird middle ground where right now the employer of record can be another parent in the house. So for example, if mom's the paid caregiver, dad could sign the timesheets and be the employer of record. The bill that passed would make that permanent as well. Right now, under the temporary flexibilities, parents don't have to show they're the last resort caregiver. They don't have to show that you've tried everything else you can to try and hire someone and your child has unusual and extraordinary needs and you're the only one who can serve them. That will also be made permanent under the bill. Right now, parents can only work 40 hours per week total, no matter how many waiver user children they have under 18. Under the bill that is passing, that will be 40 hours per week per child. It's not often, but we certainly know waiver families who have twins or otherwise multiple children under 18 who are waiver users, and that will protect them. For everyone right now and at this point permanently, if you have a parent being a paid caregiver for a child under 18, all of the year's respite hours are forfeited. And that is not fixed in the new bill that came out. Because there's a cost associated with it, it was the piece that was pulled out in a compromise bill to get everything else through. So I will say already there are plans to go back and tackle that in 2025, which seems silly to be saying in March, but that'll be our next chance when General Assembly goes back into session. So that's something that's still very much being worked on. I wanted to give a huge thank you to this group for another bill that's got a lot of compromises and a lot of back and forth on it, and that's that SSDI income disregard bill. That means if someone with a disability has parents that retire or pass away and that SSDI amount, that Social Security benefit they get, increases over their current SSI, it made it very difficult for some people to work at all and have the potential for someone to completely lose their waiver eligibility, right? You start receiving so much SSDI through your parents when they pass away that you could lose your waiver financially. So this bill is what's becoming a 2-year pilot, essentially, that says for 2 years, when we look at whether or not someone's financially eligible for waiver, regardless of how much money Social Security is paying them each month, will only count up to the current SSI amount. So if you're getting double or triple that in SSDI, we're only counting the SSI amount against your waiver eligibility so that people can continue to work at the same rates, even as minimum wage rises, so that people can keep their jobs, look for new jobs, otherwise protect their waiver services, which is very exciting. That bill, as a compromise, is scheduled to sunset or end in 2026 without further action. The intention being that this go into place sometime the next few months in the time it takes to write the regulations and change the software that processes Medicaid applications, et cetera. Then use it, and then go back in 2026 with data that says, isn't this great? People were able to work. People were able to keep their waivers. Parents didn't have to be terrified of dying. And it brings higher copays in to the state. It should be a win-win-win. So we are hoping to go back with that data in 2026, which is the next stop on that bill. But for now, it's being live. It will be soon. Simultaneously, Medicaid between now and November is supposed to convene a work group and write a report on a program called Medicaid Works that's been around in Virginia for more than 2 decades, I think, that essentially says for people without DD waiver who have Medicaid, if you start on Medicaid and then start working, which would usually cause you to push the income limits of Medicaid and you would otherwise lose it, Medicaid Works allows you to co-pay into Medicaid, buy your way in, essentially. And people in Medicaid Works can earn up to $75,000 a year and keep Medicaid. This work group is supposed to be looking at what would it be like to include DD waiver users and otherwise make adjustments to that Medicaid Works program. And that report is due out in November with the intention of, if results or that possibility looks favorable, that legislation could be introduced at the start of 2025 for the next General Assembly session, which I'm very hopeful about. On the criminal justice front, there is now an affirmative defense to prosecution, which is sort of a funny term, but means a much easier way to get charges dismissed if someone with a disability that's defined very broadly. It includes our whole DD community, but also folks with dementia, folks with mental health needs. I think there's one big group that I'm missing right now. If they're having a crisis and we call first responders to respond to that crisis, and some of the manifestation of that crisis is we flail and hit an officer, we resist, we're banging our fists around and hit an officer. In the past, that kind of very intentional action that was obviously a manifestation of the disability would result in an assault on the officer charge and mandatory 6 months in jail, right? And so in this case, if we're calling someone to help in a very specific circumstance, we're going in knowing that this person needs help, that person doesn't necessarily have to have that assault on an officer and 6 month jail time charge, which is exciting. And there's also going to be mandates on in-service training for police officers on communicating with people they come into contact with developmental disabilities. I don't know any of the details of that, but I'm excited about it. And then lastly, on the guardian front, if an adult with a disability has a guardian and is concerned that that guardian is not an appropriate fit, I don't see this happen very often with family caregivers, guardians, they can now petition the court by writing a letter to say, I have some concerns about my guardian, which is, I think, hugely important for our community who may find it difficult to have the ability to, for example, hire an attorney and pay an attorney's retainers fees to go represent them and remove that guardian, right? DARS, our State Department of Aging and Rehab Services, is supposed to start providing training for guardians by next year. So that would be a training for all new guardians appointed after 2025, and for existing guardians, it would go out to them as well. And now guardians ad litem, who are those sort of independent eyes and ears of the court who go out when a guardian is proposed to say, yes, I think this guardian is appropriate, and yes, I think this person needs a guardian, have new authority, one, to consider the capacity of the proposed guardian. This is not generally an issue with family caregivers, but for example, if there's a private attorney who has 400 guardianship clients, it would now be within the realm of possibility for that guardian ad litem to say, I don't think it's reasonable to assume that you are going to see this other client on top of these 400 and have enough contact with them to make appropriate decisions as a guardian. And also the guardian ad litem has new authority to consider past issues with adult protective services around abuse, neglect, and exploitation in considering the fitness of the guardian. So I think those are all big moves ahead to protect our really vulnerable community. I know that that's a ton. If people have other questions, I'm happy to try and answer them as best I can. And then we should know about the time that we're back in April, what the governor is signing and how the budget and things are going. The General Assembly won't formally be back till April 17th, but we'll have good clues before then. We're putting out, I should have said, we're putting out a video next week that's 12 minutes long. That's me essentially giving the same talk with PowerPoint slides. If you want to share it or hear it again, because it was so dazzling the first time around.
Thank you, Lucy. And you have some other things coming up that you want to announce. First of all, are there any questions about the bills? Raise your hand, please.
So then the other things that I wanted to highlight, or Sherry, am I missing hands?
Oh, no hands are raised.
Okay, well, I'll put this in the chat too. We'll be on our workshops page, but we're doing our next safety day with Arlington first responders on Saturday, April 20th. That'll be 11 to 2 at Kenmore Middle School. Again, I'll put the workshop link in the chat so that people can see it and sign up, but people can make an identification card. They can learn what they should and shouldn't say to an officer. For the first time Marcus Alert people are going to be there. They'll help people create those electronic profiles that are tagged to your home, your address, your phone number, your name, etc., so that you can decide what officers or other first responders know in coming to your home. Those kinds of things we're really excited about. They are going to answer questions about when you call 911 versus 988. If someone's having another kind of crisis, I'm really excited about that. And people can do practice scenarios with police officers, and Josue will be there. Bonus. We continue to have chats every month for free. It's essentially a 1-hour chat with a special education attorney if you know of families who need those. We are having a brand new webinar in April that I'm very excited about life insurance and disability insurance issues, because I know a lot of families plan to leave life insurance funding to fund a special needs trust or other services for their adult loved one with a disability. And there are massive issues in the life insurance community with denying life insurance claims. And so this is a bit about how to be proactive, and if you need to reactive, to make sure that any policy that you have is working like it's supposed to, especially because usually the person who signed that policy is no longer there to advocate, at which point we are trying to use the policy. So better prepared than not. We are also doing a brand new webinar with an occupational therapist on sleep and how to encourage safe and full night's sleep for people with developmental disabilities, which I personally am very excited about. We'll be doing another Social Security basics webinar. Our ongoing monthly trips on Metro Bus and Rail to learn travel training with our Tech for Independent Living team are going on. Next week, we have our annual benefit breakfast. I'm very sorry to say that I will not be able to be there, but our team will be. And then just recently, we had webinars that are recorded on tax implications for people with disabilities, which is so timely, of course, on dual eligibles, people who get Medicaid and Medicare, and what that means and how to navigate between those benefits, and an updated webinar on waivers. And that's it.
Can I just add, I just want to add, we have an upcoming webinar on Thursday at 1 o'clock with DARS that you can register for.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lindsay. Thank you, Diane. The next letter.
Lucy. Oh, see my question in chat?
Yes, so great question. Recently, there was someone with a developmental disability who was lost in Maryland, and it became clear that if you aren't in the Amber Alert phase of childhood or the Silver Alert phase of senior citizen years, there's not an alert system in Maryland. Virginia has the same problem. And so about the same time that was becoming apparent in Maryland, just because of the timing of our General Assembly, it was too late to get legislation in this year, but Delegate Bennett Parker, who represents the Alexandria area, has already reached out to us to say, would we be interested in something like this for next year? Of course we are. I had talked with our first responder partners in Arlington. They are very frustrated by the lack of a system, right? They would like something to go out in the way that Amber Alert and Silver Alerts are set up. You can't thoughtfully misuse them. Like you couldn't put in a 40-year-old with Down syndrome with good intentions. It just won't let you do it. So I'm really, really hopeful about that for next year and would love to work with this group on advocating for that.
Great, thank you. Okay, the main part of our agenda today will be looking behind the numbers, what's in the county proposed budget. Oh, sorry. After this. I have a correction to the minutes. Well, first of all, with the attendance, I think, did you fix Wong and Fabio Garcia were in members present in attendance? It's, okay, so they were members in attendance and not here virtually in terms of Long and Fabio Garcia. You have them down here as.
Yeah.
Here.
I know.
We didn't, this time a financing. And then added to the co-chairs report. The co-chairs welcomed Fabio Garcia. Sorry, Mark, is it Mara? Sorry.
Sarah Mara.
Thank you, sorry. Mara, Flynn, and Long to the committee. Then the last one suggested by Carol Skelly is under the budget discussion, item 2. Advise, keep the same, advise county of DD committee interest in, and then add locations offering enhanced opportunities for community integration to planned, and then delete like before, and then expanded day programs. So are there any other corrections to the minutes? Do I have a motion to accept? Thank you, Carol.
Second.
There being no other corrections, we will. Thank you. So now can we talk about? You don't have anything for those of us in the room who look at it on the screen. And then, okay, and then in advance of the meeting, I also shared a copy of the same information.
And Carl picked it out as well.
Yeah.
And I think it's on. And so Sherry, what I understood and took away is we're talking about the data. So we will talk about it specifically in May. Jeff typically has done an annual presentation of the approved budget, which he will go into more detail. And in May. So my understanding was you wanted us to go specifically over the data in the report. And so I can do an overview of that. I'll go through the and any questions. I should be able to answer most of the questions, but being also online in the event that they're specific that he might be able to go. So as you all know, the county manager's proposed FY25 budget was released 2 weeks ago, I think, Saturday, 2 weeks ago. And that included the Department of Human Services budget. And one of the things that's different this year is that we're now under a bureau, a larger bureau. So it's the Clinical and Developmental Services Bureau. So you'll notice in the budget pages, both developmental services and senior adult mental health. And of course, we're just presenting and talking about developmental services here today. So give me 1 second, because I am confusing myself because I'm looking up there when I need to be looking on my screen and advancing this. So I'm going to move to page.
Can you talk to us about the components here? This work coordination.
Yeah, that's where I'm moving to. So I'm moving to
Page 4, right?
well, it's page 2 for me. It's
So for those of you who are following online, if that's helped, I mean,
Yes.
I see here is page 4 on mine.
yes. So I will jump. I'm actually going to jump to because this deals with employment. I'm going to wrap back around. I'm going to start kind of big picture and sort of narrow in. So I'm going to jump. If that was page 4, then I guess I'm jumping to page 5. Data is also broken down. What we typically do for the budget is we do a 5-year kind of look. So we're looking at the current year, which is FY24, sort of our estimate for that, because we're still in the year when we submit this. And then we also look at the 4 prior years. So that's FY20, 21, FY 22, and FY 23. And then we also look at an estimate of FY 24. I do want to remind people that as we are looking at the numbers, FY 20 would have been 2019 into 2020. And so the third or fourth quarter of that, we saw a significant decline, particularly where habilitation day support was concerned because programs were closed. And most of FY 21, which would have been 2020 into 2021, programs were also closed. So just as a reminder there, the numbers were a little wonky.
Yeah.
So just as a reminder. So we ended FY 23, that would have been June 30th of 2023, the fiscal year being July to June of every year, having a total of 632 individuals that were open for services. And that breakdown, looking at those that are monitored and active for support coordination. And as a reminder, individuals that are considered active are individuals with a DD Medicaid waiver, individuals that are on the wait list but are receiving some type of service, individuals that are in permanent supportive housing, and any individual open to developmental services that is also receiving behavioral health services. So they're either being seen by our DD mental health or by the psychiatrist. And if they are in any of those categories, they're considered active.
632 at the end of 2023.
I'd have to look at that particular number, but I can tell you approximately how many are local. So of that, so let me talk about the monitored first real quickly. I'll come back to that. The monitored breakdown are individuals that are primarily they're monitored. They're going to be on the waiver wait list. And the majority of those, as you can see, 233 are children, 142 are adults. And with the majority of those being individuals with a developmental disability, specifically intellectual disability there. And then going back up to the top, the majority of the individuals that are receiving active support coordination are adults, 281, and then children are 25. And the majority of those that are children receiving active support coordination are active because they are in permanent supportive housing. About 21 or so of those are going to be, as opposed to children having a waiver. So that's not 25 children with a waiver. They're most likely active because our current policies, procedures require us to have active anyone that is in permanent supportive housing. And so that's the majority of those 25. To Sherry's question, she was asking for that breakdown. So when you look at that number of 280 that are active, approximately how many of those are waiver versus how many of those are local funded. And so I don't have the exact number for that data, but approximately I'd say 30 to 35 that are local funded. We serve far fewer people that are local funded than are waiver. Starting with waiver redesign in 2016, we get a larger number of waivers. Prior to that, we averaged, as you might recall, 1 to 3 waivers a year. And right now we're average waiver redesign around 17 to 22. I think on that high end, we've got upwards of 22. So we're able to shift more people that are local funded from year to year into waivers. And we anticipate seeing an increase shift in that as we look to have more individuals moving into waivers because of the increase over the 2 fiscal years anyway of shifting away from our priority list. A word on our priority waiver list as well. Those of you that don't know, though most of you do, the waiver wait list is divided into priorities 1, 2, and 3. And you are required for the family and individual supports waiver and the community living waiver to be priority 1 to be considered for a waiver slot. And so we just did a waiver slot assignment committee in January because the waivers for FY24 were divided into 2 different allocations, one this summer, past summer in July, and another in January. So we're also in the process of making all of our graduates priority one, because aging out of IDEA services is a category for becoming priority one. And then we're also looking at all of our priority twos and threes, and so some of them are shifting as well. So in the next couple of weeks, we anticipate our numbers significantly rising. And that's been consistent with the data that I had previously provided you. And as we add more people to the priority one, we are estimating that by the end of the year, we will have about 35 to 40 people or so that are priority, about 35, with 23 of those being students that are aging out of IDEA services by the end of June.
How many of them?
20.
So the total number will be 35 at the end of the year.
Approximately.
Okay, that's good. That's a quick question.
Sure. Did that answer your question?
Yes. Thank you.
Yes, Donna.
So for the CCC plus people, are we still, I've had people ask me this, are we still kind of encouraging them to pop over, or we feel like that's a stable place for them to sit?
When you say pop over, what do you mean?
So I know some of those families like that flexibility. But in the past, we've talked about in this meeting that we really want those people to move over to the other waiver if they are offered.
Oh, absolutely.
So we should always, we continue, that's our stance.
Well, we would strongly encourage them to be on the wait list for the DD Medicaid waiver. Absolutely.
Yeah.
They should always be there or not.
They should be, but not, I mean, if we don't know who they are.
Right.
So,
that's something we should be. Okay.
right.
Got it.
But for the ones we know, who they are, they're going to be on the wait list.
And it would, I mean, do we think that's going to go away, I guess? So we heard any more news that the CCC plus will go away?
I don't know very much about the CCC plus. Here's what I do know, however, is that there are, because you have to do a redetermination of the CCC plus waiver. And so there was a time in Arlington County specifically where people were being found eligible to receive services under the CCC plus waiver that didn't necessarily meet that nursing home level of care. What we are seeing is as they're coming up for recertification is they're not meeting criteria for the CCC plus waiver. And so they're losing, those waivers. So that's kind of leveled off a little bit. I would say we probably saw more of that a few years ago, but it's starting to level off now. So it's much harder to actually even qualify for a CCC plus waiver than what used to be the case because of that nursing home level.
Thank you.
Okay, so moving up, let's see, number of and percentage of family members responding. This is our annual survey. So we do an annual survey every year, and constantly we're open for suggestions on increasing the percentage of surveys that are actually returned. We send the survey out to all of our individuals receiving active support coordination, and overall the satisfaction for FY23, the last year we would have done that is 96%. Our goal is 90%. So you can see year after year after year after year, we're achieving that goal and then some for satisfaction of services. We have, go ahead, Lynn.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. What was the percentage of respondents to the total population?
Respondents, you're talking about the survey?
Yes.
So we had 51 responses and we would have mailed out 281 surveys. 51.
So it's less than 25%.
Yeah, my goal is like 28%. Ideally, a statistically significant sample would be nice. So we were slightly under that, but not by much. I think we were right around 27%. It's so we did a survey of a couple of years ago when we sent the survey out, where we specifically asked people wanted to receive the survey, and overwhelmingly people wanted a paper copy of the survey. So what I'm looking to perhaps do this year is to send, when we send the survey out, is to do a QR code to the survey in my head, and I don't understand all the technology stuff, so we'll have to figure out how to make that happen so that it gives people the option of how to return the survey. So we would still send it out as we have been doing. You can do it wherever you can scan a QR code.
I feel like we did have the option, like I just used the paper because we had it, but I feel like it told you could go on, didn't it?
It's
Did it?
It's never done that. We've
Never? Oh, I felt
done
like
that.
I was like, I got this
Yeah, I didn't
paper.
know that. It's never
Never
no.
been electronic.
Fairfax County for the first time just did theirs last year, where they just sent out one piece of paper. And if you wanted it paper, you had to request the paper, versus the other way around.
What was their return?
I don't know.
Oh,
I think that's a great idea. But also, what about also having the support board here bring it?
Wondering if there should be the support coordinators can give a heads up to their clients and let them know if it's important.
Which they do, and I sent a cover letter as well, but feel
Yeah, I
free to
guess I
email
think
me
it's-
your suggestions, because I
Yeah.
don't wanna.
Sorry, I just know that like a lot of my mail has gone missing. My mail is so bad right now that I don't even remember getting it.
but you're getting a good grade with this low turnout. So whoever it is returning it, they love you. So,
Yeah, it's just that it's very few.
yeah. But that is weird because usually it's the unhappy people that respond.
I'm jumping back to what is perhaps page 4 for some of you. This is the measures in our performance measurement plan specifically. So each of the departments or divisions, excuse me, in our department does what's called a performance measurement plan, where we are specifically looking at how much did we do, how well did we do it, and who's better off. And so our measures that we're looking at, or that we've been looking at are looking at the number of individuals that are in competitive integrated employment. The state sets of metrics across the board, where the goal for that is 50%. And in FY23, we were at 44%. Considered that the vast majority of the state is somewhere in the 25, 26 percentile. I think Arlington County and Loudoun specifically are in that higher percent. And that's looking at, of those individuals, when we have the annual employment conversation of who's interested in working, 44% of those actually working in competitive integrated employment.
That they're interested.
I want to say it was about 99, 98, 99. That's going to be
Individuals.
individuals that said they wanted to. And then others that are not into competitive integrated employment, they have an outcome in their plan that's working towards that, so that if there's a barrier or some skill that they are working on, that will get them closer to competitive integrated employment. Another measure that we look at is the percentage of individuals that are maintained in non-institutional community settings. How many people are we supporting and maintaining in the community? And we were at 97%. We consider the institutional settings to be our intermediate care facilities, nursing homes, and training centers. And I think we also count Mary Marshall in that as well. So the vast majority of the people that we are serving on both monitored and active are supported and maintained in the community setting. We still, by the way, currently have 2 individuals that are at the Southeastern Virginia training by choice of the parents, our family member. Percentage of individuals who had an annual conversation about employment, 99%. Of people, there's 1 person that missed that conversation for reasons unbeknownst to me. I don't get me started on that. That we look at face-to-face contacts, and there are twofold. So individuals that are individuals receive a face-to-face in-person contact every 90 days at a minimum. Most are seeing more than that. And then for individuals that are in what's called enhanced case management, and those are individuals out of some type of institutional setting into community-based services, the encounter with a crisis emergency room, being hospitalized, contact with a police officer, having any elevated exceptional medical and or exceptional behavior on their support intensity scale assist would be considered enhanced. Those individuals are required to have an in-person, face-to-face contact every less than 30 days. And so our goal there is 90%. Fell short of that last year in FY23, coming in at 84%, which meant that there were some people that were seen in that 31 to 40 day period. So not that they missed it altogether, just didn't occur in the 30 day contact. And a lot of those were from, also has to be every other visit in the home, or people, they're traveling out of the country or they're going out of the state. So we know that number can't be 100%, but we certainly want to be closer to 90%. And we did meet the metrics for the 90-day contacts and 91% for FY23. And then our goal for the next current year and the next year is at 95%. Any questions there before I move on? To talk about employment. This is data that we actually collect once a year from our providers on getting the average hourly earnings for individuals in supported employment. And this is primarily, of course, looking at employment group models, and then the bottom employment individual models, with the average hourly salary for FY23 being $13.12. And for individual supported employment, $13.97. And that's an average of all of our providers for which we contract with. So we have some individuals, of course, that we support in group supported employment that might be supported by, say, Chimes or a non-contracted provider that's not factored in for the ones that we actually contract with, for which we can gather the data from them, in terms of the average amounts. And then you can see the actual amounts and the as well.
I didn't understand that second word. So who is not counted?
So let's say a provider, like we don't contract with Chimes, for example, but you could have a waiver and have individual supported employment under your waiver, but we don't get the average employment salaries from Chimes. So that's not going to factor into here. It's only those providers that we happen to contract with, requirement of their contract to submit that hourly wage information to us.
So someone who's receiving waiver services who also contracts with the county, but the county didn't pay.
That's included.
That's included. It's only the folks outside. Okay. So almost everybody's
Is included.
included.
Correct.
That's average, like median, like the most counted.
No, it's an average. It's not the median.
So if I make $75,000 a year, that gets averaged out. The $3.
Nobody's making $75,000 a year, but
Because
yes.
they can't get the Medicaid.
This is a breakdown looking at continuing to look at day support. The number of individuals served receiving an actual service for habilitation services, actual for FY23, 133. And you can see the numbers there. That's referring back to that dip in FY21. I think the only provider that was open really throughout FY21, most of that was Millwood in terms of serving. So that 6 is largely for that program. And then we started to gradually have people in 2021 into 2022 starting to return. Just as a reminder, when we first reopened, a lot of the programs opened part-time.
Yes.
And then we got back into full-time around 2022, July of 2022, 2023. So we're just, gradually seeing those numbers get back up.
So again, county
County funded and waiver funded, correct.
So if I look at around the first page you gave us, there are approximately 250 people receiving waivers. I'm just looking at 281 minus.
Well, right, that are receiving active support coordination. That can be waiver, local funded, but some of those are not receiving any local funded service or waiver. Some of them are active because they're open to behavioral health. So they might be receiving therapy and nothing else. So they could be receiving psychiatry services and nothing else. They could be in permanent supportive housing, no additional supports.
So, but I know we just added capacity and future capacity for the day programs. And utilization is going up by maybe 10, 12 people a year. That day programs. So we're only getting 10 or 12 more people a year, but we're adding capacity. Does that mean that the folks from other sections up as much?
No, no, it doesn't necessarily mean that. So and we could look at employment as well. We are seeing probably it leveling off in terms of people going into employment services versus habilitation. And we're trying to bring more people in. So part of the focus of building capacity is accounting for our graduates, where day support specifically is concerned, is accounting for our graduates that are going to be and being able to provide services in the county. What really sparked the conversation about building capacity several years ago is the realization that more than 50% we support are going to programs outside of the county. And so the conversation started because that is in large part because we don't have the programming here in the county, and we're then competing with non-county programs when we're looking at the service sources and the LEs and the mail. They're great programs, but we're then competing with all these other jurisdictions when we're trying to send our individuals. Building capacity is to be able to provide the choice of attending a program in Arlington County, as well as those individuals that may be outside of the county, that as we build capacity, might say, now that you have greater capacity, I actually want to bring my son or daughter back into Arlington County.
So I guess I'm just wondering why in 2025 we're only one guess.
Well, it's just an estimate. It could change.
The employment readiness program, you're getting
15.
And then with the CIC community, that's another 15.
But I guess if you look at it this way, because we would have had 15 people anyway. So you have 15 people that are going to be at the employment access program. We're building capacity in Arlington County, but for that program, 15 people could be served outside of Arlington County. So we're trying to build capacity in the county. Those 15 individuals would have been served somewhere, but now they're able to attend a program in Arlington County. So the emphasis is really on capacity in our county.
What's the question from Carol Sally?
Says we may have said this, but it's the actual head count on as opposed to percentage of people working in CE.
What is CI?
CIE is competitive integrated employment. And Carol, I did not say that.
47% of the
Right.
99.
But she's looking for, do I have the,
Yeah,
so
well,
somebody can get it out there. What is 44% of 99 individuals? 45, roughly 45 people, Carol. Clients served in supported employment, group supported employment, ended FY24 with 24 individuals in group supported employment. And for individual supported employment, 10 individuals. And that is a drop in terms of in that particular area. We saw, unfortunately, a number of people in individual supported employment gradually going down, and I think in part due to COVID of not continuing to work. Some of that was individual choice, family choice, and some of it was not. but starting to see those numbers go back up as well. Percentage of clients, if somebody could just keep an eye on the chat as well, if you don't mind. Percentage of clients responding to a survey rate of rehabilitation and supported employment services is satisfactory or better than satisfactory. That was 77%, so that's not a good number. And we definitely want to see that go up. And then, of course, we had a lot going on with transportation in FY23, so we weren't surprised to see that percentage low as well. And then I'm going to get into, I think, residential services, and then it's going to cut into senior adult mental health. Residential services, intensive congregate, these are our group homes. We had at the end of last year, 83 individuals at the close. So on June 30th, how many people were in a group home? 83, and estimating 6. So we would have had vacancies at the end of, as of June 30th, and estimating that all of those beds will be filled as well. And we did see some of our providers changing capacity. So for some of the group homes, so VOA, for example, excuse me, not VOA, JDI, they had a group home that was, and they kept that license at 5, so they're not going to go up. We had some other providers, I think, see a couple of their homes that were licensed at 5, and someone moved out and they kept it at 4 individuals rather than increasing that. So getting to smaller homes, smaller size. No, it's the state strongly encourages, you know, the smaller the home, the better. So there's definitely some encouragement for there, and the state also incentivizes. So the smaller the number of people that you are licensed for, the higher the reimbursement rate per individual.
And I think that was part of the set, right? That was part of the settlement.
Yep.
So it was it.
Yeah.
Okay, it's like the new Marsh,
Large has always been 4 capacity.
and that's once the new Reeves is built. I'll move in there, or are they doubling?
No, that will, so Sherry is asking about the Reeves farmhouse property. So that is, they're in negotiations with the county for that property in partnership with Habitat for Humanity. That will have a capacity of 4. That will be 4 completely new beds. So they currently have 2 group homes in Arlington County, each with 4. So that's actually building capacity. So what Marsh is, you know, looking to do, some of the individuals in the existing homes might move into the setting, or it could be completely, you know, new people. So it'll be variation. I suspect that some of the individuals in the current home will be moving into the new place once Reed's farmhouse is ready, and then new individuals. Taking referrals right now. So if you're interested in Marsh, by the way, you want to get on their interest list to be considered. Even when that, what mine.
Can you explain to everybody what Marsh is, or?
So Larsh is a group home. Larsh of Greater Washington is one of about 7 group home providers here in Arlington County. It's an international organization. They have a few homes in Washington, DC, and 2 homes here in Arlington. And then we're looking to add a 3rd here in Arlington as well. So they're a group home residential provider.
What is unique is that there will be 4 bedrooms for the DDA community, but there will be, I think they told me there'll be 4 more for, that's kind of their model, is that there are people that live there. They're kind of like AmeriCorps, Vista, whatever. So it's actually a bigger home, but only 4 beds for
the group home residents, and so which are considered,
which is
4
nice.
members, and I think it's 2 for staff. They have additional staff that not all of the staff live there.
Right.
But they do have staff that actually do live in the home in that particular model, that actually live there. I think it's 2.
I just wrote it down, but it's
you're probably
kind of cool. I don't know.
Yeah, so it's the only model in the entire state, I do believe.
That is it.
Yeah. Trying to identify a particular population for this new home.
It'll be likely the same population of people that they currently serve.
Which is more physically disabled, is it more spectrum group, or is it a combo?
I think it's a combination.
They don't identify exotic. They basically say we take referrals, we don't prioritize, we look through, see what the good fit is. We
Yeah.
Don't really. My son is very medically complicated and they're out whether or not they can serve him.
Right, right. That's sort of what I was asking.
Yeah, and they won't really say.
But they did say that they would, I mean, which is pretty unique, that they would not consider that. Like,
Yes,
they
so
will.
they're gonna, yes, they didn't say absolutely no. So
So they will, they
they're an
look at,
interesting group.
right, they always look at their existing, that are living there and they see who fits best in that particular sort of milieu with that. With
They also are,
Yeah.
they're religiously based.
Yes.
They're a Christian organization, so they don't, it's not that they force that on anyone, that's part of their structure.
Right.
Looking at respite care, sure why that number is so low. Well, for FY 23, in terms of utilization of the Heartwood bed, we actually just did not have very many people utilizing the bed in FY 23. And it's particularly with COVID happening as well. I do anticipate that number going up much more for FY 25. That's the fiscal year we're going into 2025. So I anticipate that we will be serving more people because as you may recall, our respite bed is moving to or has moved to Irving Street. And so with it being here in the county, I think that that will open more opportunities for families to utilize the respite bed.
Is there only one?
It's just, we've always just had one. Even when we were at Heartwood, there was just the one bed.
But families are saying that because there is now a community of people that use Jill's house, like, a family like ours would never used it. We never even would conceive of using it. But now there's these families in Arlington that are really, their child is very comfortable going to a respite for the weekend. So I think the model, I mean, I agree, LaVoice. I think you're gonna have a lot more people that are looking for that option because they're used to having quarterly opportunity, or whatever they were doing at Jill's house.
Yep. And hope, I'm looking forward to, once, and I'll give an update in my staff updates on where we're at with Irving Street. But I would like to do some type of sort of secondary community outreach, but specific for people that are open to us that might be interested in respite to be able to come, see the home. Maybe my Mona or Jim will let us buy some pizza or something. Probably not.
Bring your apple.
Bring your own pizza, but to be able to see the home, get a feel for it and the staff that are going to be caring for your son or daughter, because I think that's just going to increase the likelihood of it being.
Going to break down some barriers.
So of the six, of the six assignings, how many are currently in the house?
I'm going to talk about that in my staff update if I can. But I don't want to get ahead of myself with that because that's giving an update in my staff update. And that's it for our data. The rest, it goes into the second part program under clinical and developmental services. Jim, before I open it up for questions, is there anything you would like to add to anything I said in terms of these numbers that we've gone over? Any questions anyone has specifically for Jim who's on the call?
I don't have anything to add now.
I have a couple of be here for the record. In the attachment that I sent, as opposed to the one that Carlos sent, I also had some budget information and some FTE information. And I just want to note that developmental disability services will see an increase this year in county, but primarily in county investment in these services of 7%, going up to $16 million, and that is largely due to the operational expenses of the new programs that we brought up to speed, as well as the increases in the rate increases that we made.
Right.
The second is that there is an additional FTE that I wasn't sure about. There are 32.5 FTE in services, and there'll be 33.5 proposed in fiscal year 2025, and I wasn't sure what that additional FTE.
I don't think that, because I think it's for the Bureau. One of those might be for senior adult mental health. Maybe or not.
Can I
Yes,
chime
please.
in?
Yes.
Yeah, so, I think you're talking about the bureau level, Sherry.
Yes.
Those are not all
authorized FTE
DS.
by line of business, page 557.
Can you repeat that one more time? I'm sorry.
It's the chart on page 557 of the budget. All authorized FTEs by line of business. And it has, some of the upper level administration stuff, developmental disability services. It says there are 32.5 FTE in fiscal year 24. And the fiscal year 25 permanent FTEs proposed is 33.5. And the reason I'm asking that is that we're going to be talking to the board about adding.
Okay.
So if that question comes up, I want to be able to answer what the answer to that question is.
So we're not looking at this document. We're looking at it here.
We're looking at
You said it was page 555?
557.
Yeah, so that includes all of the bureau. I think there's a misprint in that table. And then it should say clinical and developmental services bureau. Because that is not just developmental services.
So this is the other side. Okay. Okay, I just wanted to make sure that no one was going to call me on it.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Good catch.
So I can tell you there are 44.5 FTEs in developmental services.
In clinical and developmental services.
Sorry, when Jim talks, there's a repeat, there's echo.
Mute.
Okay, do you want me to say that again? Okay,
Yes.
There are 24.5 FTEs in total in developmental services. And I'll have to reach out to DMF about that that typo. As you all know, there's a lot of details that go into the budget narrative preparation, and I'm unclear how that was portrayed or how that got changed or portrayed in that table. So sorry for the confusion.
I'm glad that it didn't somehow get added, because I don't want to get called on it's already there if it's not. Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Any other questions?
So Carol.
Carol.
Yeah. So I think I'm having a little trouble here. I'm just wondering if it will be possible, since Jim is on the call, for us to get the presentation that we have received in the past with DD services that shows the the expenses by program category and the reimbursements and the net and so forth. The printout, the Excel spreadsheet.
Yes, I do recall that. And then you may also recall earlier in the meeting that the voice indicated I'll be doing a full presentation on the adopted budget in May.
Oh, okay. So that's when we would be able to get that.
I believe that's the plan.
Yes, that is the plan.
Okay, great. Yeah, I mean, I think one of the questions is, total expenditures are going up, but with all of these waivers coming in, there would be some increase in reimbursements, I think. So it's helpful to look at the gross, but it's also helpful to look at the net.
Well, that's a very complex set of circumstances, Carol, and there's no way that we were able to accommodate for that in the budget planning that happened in the fall.
I'm just talking about, well, the information that we've had for the last 2-3 years, which I think we all sort of agreed was something that was doable. I mean, I hope it's still doable.
Sure. I understand. But just to your last note about, the reimbursements going up, there's so many intangibles that will happen or did happen between when I'm putting this together in, August, September, October, and then now, January plus, when those waivers are going to get awarded. So the reimbursement totals for the budget on the revenue side are not going to reflect that because there are way too many variables.
Sorry, I wasn't talking about the projected. I was just talking about the past. You have a projected net tax support let me send the printout again. You haven't looked at it for a while, but you have net tax support in projected, but because of the new presentation, there's nothing to compare it to.
I see.
You can't really look at net tax support for FY25 compared to what it actually turned out to be in FY24 and FY23.
Okay, sure. I understand what you're saying.
That's the county's contribution.
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Turn it back over to you, Carrie. There are no additional questions.
Thank you, Boyce, for walking us through it. It's important for us. There's also the county budget hearings and tax hearings that we will send information to folks about. It's always good for our board to hear the importance of developmental disability services. And then Bertra, Joe, and I are scheduled to meet as CSB representatives to the county board with our individual meetings. So we will be presenting the proposals that we submitted at last meeting. So for the chair report, what else do we have?
The rescheduled, you sent an email about that.
Yeah.
So the listen and learn will be held next month. I'm sorry to keep putting it off, but it just it's taken a little while for us to get everybody on board. So I think we have almost everyone on board, and we're ready to go for next month. It should be very interesting because we've given the providers 5 minutes and a PowerPoint slide to give us the highlights of their programs. So, well, as we have 2 panelists, one is our very own Ben McGann. And then another young man who goes to the CIC will be on a panel describing that. This is going to hand out descriptions of the different types of programs and services available both through local and waiver services and our services. And their contact information. We're going to do a run of that through the mails or something. Oh, no, I think that you should bring that up as part of your event. So go ahead.
Yeah. So we had an executive meeting recently, and raised the concern of SEPTA parents that DHS has proposed funding. I discussed it with them at the meeting and explained I'm personally familiar with BIS. And their explanation was that it's redundant, that there are other services that provide the same kind of training and support for parents. And said that, the demand for BIS is so low that I think they said they're serving
19 to $300,000.
for $300,000. So I just reminded them that we're spending much more, serving much fewer, many fewer people. And we can't use that as an explanation for why we're cutting a program when you look at what we are spending money for. So what we agreed is that share with us, I specifically asked for their algorithm. Now, how did they make a determination that of the 3 redundant programs that they would cut BIS? And so we expect that they'll get back to us and talk about the performance measurement, the number of families served, the cost for each of the programs as opposed to separating out BIS. They'll get back to SEPTA parents about it. But I was just surprised. I think we talked to Carol about it. I was surprised that they would make a cut of a program that's vital to our community without a heads up.
Yeah.
Now, and they were pretty adamant that it will be cut. So, Carol, I don't know what your list thinks about it. I can certainly get back to who's head of SEPTA now.
They're just having, we're having that coffee on Thursday. There's new leadership is not on it.
Yeah, but I just want to thank parents for reaching out to us because we have an opportunity to raise these issues with staff. I'm not sure what next steps are, but we've certainly gone on record. And
so if anyone has information or experience or story to share with Bertra, Bertra is taking the lead on this. We're not saying we're going to act on anything yet. We're going to look at the data.
Yeah.
I for one trust Bertra Bertra is looking at the fact, we are, as co-chairs, we are committed to balancing the needs of everybody in Arlington. We're on the CSB. We're supposed to be advocating for everybody, not just people with DD. So I very much trust Bertra's review and recommendation on this. If anyone has anything that they think Bertra should know, and he is considering this, please send it to, well, you can send it to both of us, but Bertra is taking the lead.
That parent coffee is Thursday, so usually I have a pretty good turnout, and that's more that group of younger parents. I'm happy to ask them, but anything that's with you.
This program doesn't seem to have the endorsement of the schools because Wendy Crawford, who is also the chair of the CSB, said she just wants to make it clear that this has nothing to do with Arlington Public Schools or our students.
It's a county service.
Yes.
But as I explained, it's when the schools have given up and when parents are at their wits' end and kids are at risk of being expelled because of behaviors. This is the final straw. This is the final offer from the county to have a chance to talk with these behavioral specialists to manage and modify behaviors. And the point that I made, and when he said, so this has nothing to do with APS, but my point is that the strategies and tools were so effective, APS should adopt some of these strategies. As opposed to there being a firewall between APS and APS. So I don't really feel strong about it.
Well, and we used to argue that a lot of these, I love what Lucy had a great term she used instead of saying behaviors. What did she say? Manifestation of the disability. I really try not to say behaviors, right? I mean, it's triggering for me, but a lot of our most intense cases, anecdotally, we hear parents say is children, students that were not, their communication needs were never met. So these explosive manifestations of their disability. So the idea that APS is it all goes back to the fact that they're segregated out. They aren't given an inclusive opportunity. They're not getting access to the curriculum. And there's bullying. So the idea that this service that is needed because APS isn't really doing what they need to do, because of the ADA and Olmstead that should be happening. I think it's also very convenient to be like, you know, not a problem. So anyway, and I don't care about this either. So. And push back on APS. This is the job.
Well, thank you, Bertram, for that. Staff updates.
Staff updates. So I will start with Bertram's question about Irving Street. So we continue to work with the provider in Circle on staffing for the home. And so we just are the provider, I should say, is still actively recruiting. Because we have at a minimum of 2 staff at this home at all times, it almost doubles the minimum number of people that we need to have before we can start placing individuals in the home. So we're anticipating, you know, based on what they're at now, in the next 2 months or so, hopefully we'll start to get people in there April into May. And we are going to look at staggering, which we had always been our focus, is not moving everybody in at the same time, and that will allow for training for the staff. So it's the other requirement where staffing is concerned is having a full-time nurse for this home as well. And so I know that's a position that they are still actively recruiting for. We're meeting with them bi-weekly, and we get, you know, regular updates from them as well. And then we're also looking to be able to start respite, hopefully, you know, sooner than later, so that we can start, you know, doing something, getting people in the home.
Are the individuals targeted for the home, have they been notified?
They have not been notified yet. We're having that meeting with Encircle tomorrow. So we have the individuals have been identified for who will be moving in, and we'll be notifying the families.
That we had at Hartwood is still available. People
No, we entered the contract with Hartwood. Correct. If we get into an urgent emergency situation, we can borrow a bed from Fairfax County. We would request, because the home is still there. So that home had 6 beds altogether. So Fairfax had the majority of those respite beds. And we borrowed the beds from them before. So sometime if someone was in our county respite bed and we needed another respite bed, we've been able to borrow and to ask them, and they've been very helpful. So we had an emergency situation or something, which fortunately we've not had.
So families can and should be asking their service coordinator.
Absolutely. And that's
why you said.
Yes. Yeah, no, we're telling them, and it's really important, particularly if you have a waiver, because we then want you to put, you know, to work with the provider in Circle on getting that service authorization in the waiver management system, so that when you need respite, it's ready to go. So even if you anticipate wanting to use respite in October, and your child your son or daughter has a plan that's April 1st, put respite in now, so that it's ready to go. And of course, you know, we will, for people that are local funded, will continue to offset the cost for people that are local funded for respite. Which is different, because previously, if someone went to respite under Hartwood and they had a waiver, we didn't expect the provider to bill the waiver, and now we do. And that just helps to offset overall operation cost, is that they're now required, if someone has a waiver, they have to bill the waiver for the respite.
Yeah.
The unit access is, if I'm not mistaken, and Amanda is on the call, I believe we're up to 11 out of the 12 slots that we were looking to fill sooner than later. So we have a total of 15 slots. And of course, we've talked previously about holding 3 of those for our FY24 graduates, but we've already started that referral process for individuals that we're looking to transition and here. But Amanda, if you can give an update, if I may call upon you to give an update specifically to employment access.
Sure, absolutely.
Oh, let me turn off the mic. Give me 1 second. Here.
Okay. All right. Okay, great. That's better. Yes, so we are right now, we actually had somebody new start this week. So our numbers of participants who have started in the program, believe we are at 8 right now, but we're processing other applications. So we have start dates for them. It's just a matter of scheduling the intake with families, part of the process to get all the information that we need, to get that person started and get any medical information and things like that that they need. But yes, we're almost to that number 12 number. And I think with some of the assessments that we've recently done, if those go through, we will hit number 12. So we should be to that point very soon. And then whenever we get the word from you on applications for new grads, we'll start processing those.
And we sent that list to Kinderly, by the way.
Okay, wonderful.
And we've prioritized that. So with those 3 additional slots plus the 15 community-based slots and the CIC, we've also targeted or identified, I want to say about 3 or 4 individuals that are currently center-based at the CIC that are looking or open to shifting to either a hybrid and center-based, or I think we have 1 or 2 people that want to shift 100% to community-based. What that actually does then is it opens up some of the center-based slots, because there are some of our students that are aging out of IDEA that really need those center-based slots. So we're looking to have some combination of people doing hybrid, community, center-based, and then service source, of course, just having overall flexibility in terms of how these additional slots are ultimately utilized, and having that flexibility and that discretion. So what I have certainly said is we have, 55 plus 15 additional 15 people to not be in the building. And however they get to that and however that looks, wonderful. And also just getting people in, particularly for the community base, because there's community integration, because people get out of the program all the time anyway. That's already happening, the community integration. But this is just really people getting out and more acclimated and into the community versus being in the setting, the majority of the time. So we're excited about that. And then a number of our graduates, about 7 or 8 of our graduates, maybe a little more, I'll have to get the exact number and I'll put it in the minutes, but we have a pretty significant number that are looking at employment specifically. And then a handful of those are employment, about 3 without any supports, that are going to be able to go into competitive integrated employment without any group or individual support. So that's really good as well. We continue to see the numbers increase there. No changes or issues with staffing. We're fully staffed actually for the entire bureau, I am happy to say, and for support coordination and all of our other positions. I do want to remind people about our event. Hopefully you all received the announcement for the showing of the I Am Able documentary film. So we're excited about that. That's going to be March 21st from 6 to 8 p.m. at the Central. As of today, I think I heard that our RSVP is up to 81.
Oh, that's great.
So we've got a great turnout. If you have not RSVP'd and you plan to attend, please RSVP by this Friday.
Now, there was one that says send an email to so-and-so, and then
You can also
another one that you just register online. I think
Well, they're both the same.
same.
Yeah, we were just giving people different options.
I think I just put that in the chat.
Yeah. Yep, so that would be great. For that, we're also, Employment Summit. We have the planning for, and that is scheduled for May 27th. That's a Thursday, May 27th, May 29th, whichever of the 2 of those dates is a Thursday. And we are on our way planning. Sherry, I know, is a part of the planning team for that. And we've got a few other parents that are also part of the planning, that you're a part of the planning as well. And then, no, you need to back the schedule because you're on a committee. We'll touch base afterwards.
Yeah, I think
I think you're on a
May 29th.
May 29th.
It's 10 to 2.
Yes, the outreach committee.
Right.
We'll talk about that
Oh,
after.
okay, so It's a Wednesday.
Okay,
What is it?
the Employment Summit. And so we're looking to target an outreach to a variety of employers and businesses across all aspects. Everything from retail, hotel, banking, target, whoever we can get to come. And then we'll also be inviting our employment services organizations, individuals we support that are either employed or interested in employment, and their families, and of course, staff as well. And some of our other community partners. We've been working with the Chamber of Commerce for Arlington County and using them for some of the outreach to businesses as well. And then Del Bria, our employment and community workforce development specialist, she's actually literally been hitting the ground, like going and knocking on doors of businesses as well, telling them about the summit and inviting them as well. So we'll do more outreach as we identify more potential businesses to participate. So we're excited about the planning for that as well coming down the line. We are, as I mentioned earlier, working on the priority list of getting individuals added for priority. So that's in process as well. So just keeping busy. That's, I think, it for my updates. Let me, do you have anything to add?
Nothing else to add. I was just curious. It's good to see everyone. I feel like last meeting where you mentioned applying for the grant again.
Oh, yes, I do have an
And I just
update.
wanted to get an update.
Yes. My gosh, so excited. The 11th hour, it was submitted, the person that needed to sign off for the schools, they had a change of guard. And so it was honestly, and then the schools decided they didn't have to go to school on election day, but I just sat in the lobby over there and some wonderful receptionist finally made all the wheels move. And so we're very grateful for our partners at APS, but I have to say I was part of the last.
For background, our CSB chair,
And our C,
Crawford, was calling.
everybody was helping us. I could not believe we were so close. We almost didn't have that letter from the school. So thank you to Wendy. Thank you to, please thank her again. And that wonderful receptionist downstairs. I was just gonna spend the night there, but we did get the letter, and I have to say, I did the last review and it is beautiful. I mean, it's a really, GW did a great job. It's a great package. And so fingers crossed, we're going to find out pretty soon because they want to start. I mean, they wanted to start in September. The schools did not, and I think it's probably partly because they were in this in between. They did not give us a budget item, but the first year is planning, so things could change. But it looks great. It really looks great. And I didn't realize till the very last thing, but one of the things, and is Lucy still on? One of the things that we're looking for is to do something, the transition piece, but also to bring in the safety personnel, so bring in the police and the fire departments. And Josue is going to go on the 20th in April. And we are going to try to, and we should have had them do a letter of support because they're all in. They've got these ways they're trying to help our families, but we just haven't been able to get everyone talking. So we can also bring them in and do all that. So I'm super excited and always chronically optimistic. And this time has got to be it. So thank you for asking.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah, I know. I'm already on to the next fire in the building, but yes, we got it in and it looks really good. So we'll keep you posted.
Thank you.
Right.
And were there any questions, comments regarding any of the staff updates that I shared? I don't know. You see there's something in the chat. See a little red dot. Link that Sherry put there to be I am able. Okay, I will turn it back over to Sherry.
Okay, vendors, any vendors still standing besides them?
I think we only had Service Source today as a vendor here.
Stay tuned for next month. And if folks now with a person with a disability who wants to join as a voting member, currently it comes to meetings, but if the governor signs the bill, then all of you folks who come every month, we expect you to be back on as members. I'm looking at you, Chuck. Ms. Medicine.
Make me hungry.
I know, Carol is making me hungry, like.
We're going over there.
Well,
Do I have a motion? Any other business? Motion to adjourn.
Carol, we're coming over for dinner.
Yeah, we will line up.
that woman can cook.
Do I have a motion?
Among others.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
I don't hear anyone complaining. Let's end the meeting.
And it's
Yeah,
early.
we're early.
All right, that's good.
Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Meeting next month, you said it's not.
Yeah.